Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtoto to the Shishimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtoto to the Shishimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Siddhardas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glenn, can you just bring this up just a little bit? Thanks. We are on page 115 in the book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That's good. It's good. Thank you. Okay. On this 12th day of October 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 48, page 115. Yogastakura karmani sangam tukva dhananjaya siddhi siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Page 115. Yogastakura karmani sangam tukva dhananjaya siddhi siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Yogastakura karmani sangam tyakva dhananjaya siddhi siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Yogastakura karmani sangam tyakva dhananjaya siddhi siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Yogastak karmani Sangam Tyakva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samodbhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Go ahead, Glenn. Yogastak karmani Sangam Tyakva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samodbhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Ed? Yogastak karmani Sangam Tyakva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samodbhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Word by words. Yoga stuck, equipoised. Kuru, perform. Karmani, your duties. Sangam, attachment. Tyakva, giving up. Dhananjaya, O Arjun. Siddhi, asiddhyo, in success and failure. Samaha, equipoised. Bhutva, becoming. Samatvam, equanimity. Yoga, yoga, uchyate is called. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Purport. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna, or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such he is participating in the Varnashram Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashram Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world. But one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, in the previous verses, we go back, and we see that Krishna was condemning the part of the Vedas, or the acting according to the Vedas, that part which is simply has a fruitive motive, what we call the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. There are many instructions there how one can perform various sacrifices, austerities, in order to have a better life in this life, or even get a better life in the next life, go to heaven, heavenly planets, enjoy for a long time like that. So Krishna says this is, the fools who think that this is the real substance of the Vedas. You remember those verses? He says, Yamimam Pushpitam Vacham, this idea of the flowery words of the Vedas, describing these heavenly delights and all this stuff. These are called Vedavada Rata. Those are the so-called knowers of the Vedas, but not really the knowers of the Vedas. So who are the knowers of the Vedas? Well, Krishna says, very distinctly in the 15th chapter, Vedaischa Sarvar Ahameva Vedya, that the real purport of the Vedas, the purpose of the Vedas, is to know me. And if your study of the Vedas is not leading you in that direction, then you're studying the wrong Vedas, or you're not studying under the right teacher. You're being misled. And in this age, it's very easy to be misled. So Krishna is giving the advice now to Arjuna that he should act according to Krishna's instructions and perform his duty, but not desire the fruits. This is the basic principle of karma yoga. Because it's that desire for the fruits, that fruit of activity, that keeps us bound in this world. This is what's going on all around us, so we think it's normal. But really, it's a trick. It's a trick of Maya to keep us bound to this world. To try to think that we can manipulate the material energy and thereby enjoy, get a place of security and happiness in this world. But how can there be any security here when time is always pushing us toward destruction? There's no security. It's just the illusion of temporary security. And whatever happiness they may be, sense gratification, Krishna says in the 5th chapter, this is the source of your misery. Because what happens if you enjoy in this world? Immediately you plant a desire in the mind to do it again. Isn't it? This is what the advertisers and the people who run the commercial world know. That's why at any checkout counter at any of these big stores, you'll find there's an area where there's candy for the kids. Who can resist? The kids are pulling on the mother. Please buy me this. Okay. Just stop. So then the kid eats the candy, and then he wants the candy again and again, and before you know it, mother's paying big bucks. And this is what happens, and that's for children. But adults are also acting like children when they simply follow their senses like that. And I remember because when I go to Ralph's, I buy one thing in all that whole store, organic kale. It's not a big profit item for them. It's $1.49. But if you go, where's the profit? You go. Sometimes they use the restroom. You go down the aisle. One of the aisles, snacks. A whole aisle of just snacks, engineered by highly paid scientists to have just the right mouthfeel and just the right taste to addict you to that particular foodstuff. And people think they're acting in their own free will, but they're really completely controlled by the senses. So this is just a metaphor for the whole material world. Whether it's the opposite sex or some drug or some aspiration to do this, go there, do it. It's just a big, how do I put it? It's like a virtual reality that we're thinking is completely real. But ultimately, at the point of death, it's all ripped away, and all that's left is our subtle body with all these unfulfilled desires and impressions and karma and everything. Just take us to another gross body. It's all been engineered by higher powers. And this is going on birth after birth after birth, year after year, creation after creation. Thousands and thousands of years go by, millions of years. So how to get out of this? So one of the basic principles here is to learn to act without fruit of desire. Now the only way to practically do that is to act for Krishna, to do it for Krishna. It's a discipline. Now of course we have to do something in this world to keep body and soul together. That's understood. And that's part of Krishna consciousness. This body is our tool to practice yoga. So naturally it should be kept in good order and everything like that. But minimal. I was giving a talk on, I think it was yesterday, where I was referring to some of the verses in the 2nd chapter, 1st canto, which is essential verses it's about Dharma. And this book is also all about Dharma. You remember Arjuna says, Karpanya dosha bhatasya prichami tvam dharma samuda cheta. I'm bewildered about my dharma. Now, oh Lord, I'm not going to argue with you as a friend, but I'm going to approach you as a guru. Now instruct me for sure what real dharma is and how I can act it. Because that's in the Vedic culture, it's very important to be sure that what you're doing is dharmic, right? Virtuous. Otherwise, you commit sin and you suffer like anything. So, Krishna is so in that series of verses, it's describing that whatever we do in this world, either as part of our ordinary duty or part of our religion, if it doesn't draw our attention and our interest in the Supreme God and our relationship with Him, then it's completely useless. The phrase is Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. It's the famous phrase. Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. Means a lot of hard work for no result. And so how can we learn to act? Because after all, living means doing things in this world. How can we learn to direct our activity with our intelligence for an actual auspicious result? And the only ultimate auspicious result is to seemingly end this round of birth, old age, disease, and death, birth, old age, disease, and death, birth, that we've been on since time immemorial. So that has to be the goal, and that's mentioned in these verses. Dharma vargasya. Dharma is not meant just to collect money. There's dharma, artha, kama, moksha. There's these 4 goals called purusharthas in the Vedic culture. You be virtuous, you be religious, probably called religiosity. Not exactly religion, religiosity. In order to get the boons. It's like the present day. Don't they have something called prosperity theology now? That if you're rich, that's a sign that you're getting blessings from God. And if you're poor, that means you're suffering. Was that Jesus' teachings? That the poor are condemned and the rich, they're blessed. That's just standing on his head, right? So similarly, right here at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, it says Dharma is not meant for becoming wealthy. Dharma, artha in this context means money. If we go to church once a week and we're very strict in our observance, then we'll be blessed with prosperity from God. And then we can enjoy kama, dharma, artha, kama. You see. Then what's the 4th one? Those who are a little intelligent, they understand. Well, this is going to just keep us on the round of birth and death. So we should work for moksha. Now, in this particular verse, it says, yes, dharma se yapavarga. Apavarga is another word for moksha. It means liberation. But the point is how to attain that moksha. It's not in negating your activities or the sense activities. It's in purifying them. It's unnatural to be unactive. In fact, in the next chapter, Krishna will say, how's it go? I forget the Sanskrit, but he said, you can't be inactive for even a moment. Even if you're sitting there perfectly still, your mind is active. That's active, So the question is how to act in such a way for our purification, for our, not just liberation, but going back home, back to Godhead. Liberation is a byproduct of actual bhakti. There's a verse by Bilba Mangal Thakur in his Krishna Karnamrita, where he's saying, Bhakti stvayi chidatada bhagavan nidhisyad daivena nakpalati divya kishora murti mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmartha kama gatayak samayak pratiksha. He refers there to the 4. Dharma, you hear the last line? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So he's saying there, my dear Lord, if someone is fixed in your devotional service, bhakti stvayi chidatada bhagavan or bhagavan, then he'll get the fruit of that devotional service. And what is that? A vision of your beautiful adolescent form. In other words, he'll be fixed in bhakti. And as far as mukti is concerned, she's waiting at the door with the anjali. This is a mudra. When we do pushpanjali, it's a worship mudra. See how you have something in there. You can have flowers, your heart, Whereas in other religions, the praying is like this. You see, there's nothing there. You're praying for something to be given to you. Here you're praying to please accept this offering. You see the difference? Pushpanjali means let me offer my heart, let me offer this flower to you. So mukti personified is waiting at the door. How can I serve you? To the bhakta. The bhakta is not trying to get the favor of mukti, but she's wanting to serve. So that's how bhakti works. Everything auspicious comes in the train. Whatever you need for your maintenance, Krishna provides personally. He says, I personally carry, as opposed to those who are worshipping the gods and trying to go to heaven. It says, don't worry, you just keep your mind on me, and I'll provide everything you need for your maintenance. Not extravagance, but what you need, and your security. Security and maintenance. Rakshishati Vishrat Goptit Vevananantata. These are the principles of surrender. Being confident in Krishna's maintenance and his protection. And therefore, it's just like, that's what surrender means. I'm in your hands. If you want to kill me, kill me. If you're not, whatever. It's all up to you, Krishna. So, here in the verse we read, he's encouraging Arjuna to be situated in yoga. In this case, yoga means that he's fixed in the order of Krishna. He's linked up to that, and he's going to act according to that, regardless of what his own ideas are. He's surrendering. Kuru karmani, sangam tyaktvadana, but very importantly, give up attachment to the fruits of your activity. That attachment is what keeps you bound to this plane. Siddhi siddho somo bhutva, be equipoised in success or failure. Now this is a principle that Prabhupada showed in his preaching career. If he had been, can you imagine? I mean, I would have been discouraged after a few months, wandering around a strange city, nobody really taking to it, and I got a free boat ride back to my home, Vrindavan. Okay, I tried. Back you go. And Prabhupada he wouldn't give up, would not give up. Siddhi siddho somabuddha, be equipoised in success or failure. This equipoise is what is called yoga. So, how to attain that kind of state of equipoise in this world of ours, which is anything but equipoised? There's agitation coming from every direction. Economic, political, the climate is degrading, tsunami at any moment, earthquake, take your pick. And if you're a little equipoised, then get on the internet and check out, this theory, that theory, and you'll be agitated in a few minutes. So, the samatvam, the symptom of this age is that people are always disturbed. Manna bhagya upadruta. Upadruta means always disturbed in mind, which is just the opposite of what you need to practice yoga. So he's going to explain now, after a few more verses, what the symptoms are and the activities are of someone who's actually fixed in consciousness. Arjuna will ask him some questions, and these are some of the most important verses in the Gita, and certainly in this chapter. Okay, so that's 48. If there are any questions, we can entertain them. Otherwise, we'll go on. Yes, Boo. Well, Mike over here.
You were saying there's an aisle in the grocery store filled with snacks. There's a snack. It says, "Bet you can't just have one."
You can't just have one. Yeah. That's from our day. Yeah, bet you can't just have one. Yeah, and it's true. You start eating them, and before you know it, the bag is empty. Yeah. And these are all highly processed foods. You notice that we don't eat any processed foods. Everything is fresh made, which is much healthier. All right, text 49. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
Reminds Pringles. If you look at the ingredients, it's supposed to be potato chips, but they're formed. The very last ingredient is potato.
Yeah.
All this other stuff.
And we should know that it's in order of the most. Usually at the top is high fructose corn syrup. Here, give him here. Yeah, all these names of chemicals, and then finally they get to the natural ingredient. All right, text 49. Everyone ready? Durena yavadam karma. Buddhi yoga dhananjaya. Buddhau shananam anvicha. Kripana palahetavaha. O Dhananjaya, that's the name for Arjuna, it means conqueror of wealth. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. Purport. One who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord gives up all engagements save working in Krishna consciousness. As already explained, Buddhi Yoga means transcendental loving service to the Lord. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruit of their own work just to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore never desire to be the cause of work. Now this idea of being the cause of work means that it's your motive. We're always looking, what does Krishna want me to do? You see? So that you're not the cause, you're not the the impetus for the work. Okay, where was I? Because of everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. Misers do not know how to utilize the assets of riches which they acquire by good fortune or by hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness, and that will make one's life successful. Like misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their human energy in the service of the Lord. So, the good fortune, the greatest fortune we have is that we're in the human body. How rare it is. There's only 7 billion and some odd human bodies on this planet, and there are probably that many insects in this garden out here, or maybe a few other gardens. I mean, it's rare to have a human form of life, and only in this, and even rarer is for someone. Lord Chaitanya, when he begins his instructions to Rupa Goswami, he begins like this. That human life, he says, it's rare to have a human form of life, and then it's rare to have a civilized human form of life, and it's rare in the civilization to be interested in the Vedas, and it's rare to, it gets down to a very few who are really determined to practice Bhakti Yoga. So here we are, we have interest in Bhakti Yoga, which is very rare, but we should take advantage of the great gift that we've been given. And there's so many verses about that. One of Prabhupada's favorite is Labdva sudurlabhamidham bahusambhavante. Manushyam artadam, notice that word arta again. Manushyam artadam anityam apiya dhira. Turnam yateta napateta numritya yavat. Nikshayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatakshyat. So here's a beautiful verse trying to encourage us to take advantage of this human form. So the first thing is, he says, Labdva sudurlabhamidam. Sudurlabham means very rare, difficult to attain, rare to attain. Bahusambhavante. We've attained the human form after many, many births. Bahusambhavante. Manusham. Manusham is the human form. Which is, why is it so valuable? Artadam. Because only in the human form can you attain the final goal of life for the living entity, which is to get back home, back to Godhead, to get out of this prison house and this swamp we've been in for many, many, many. Even the highest reaches of Brahmaloka and everything is still within the prison house. So, artadam, but it's not permanent. The clock is ticking. It's anityam, like all other forms. And so one has to be dhira. This word came up at the beginning of the chapter, remember, several times. Dehinos menyata dehe, komanam yovanam jara, tata dehadan prapti, dhiras tattanamuyati. Is that when he's speaking to Arjuna, you have to regard the deaths that you're going to witness now, both on your side and the other side, that you may or may not cause, but you'll be a party to, with equipoise. Understanding that everyone's going to get another body. This is like my little ditty I made up, Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body or pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. But that's exactly the main preaching in this chapter. Everybody dies. Nobody dies. You see? It's the question between everybody and nobody. It's just a little English. So he's saying that, okay, it's temporary. The clock is ticking. So time is of the essence. So the next line says turnam, begins with turnam, means right away, don't waste any time. Yateta, strive. Turnam yateta napateta namritya. As long as you haven't fallen down and died, you have life in your body, you should strive for what? Nikshayasa. Here's this word shreyas again. In that verse by Arjuna, when he surrenders, he says, Yakshay yaksyan nishtitam bruhitanme. Please tell me for certain. I trust you, as the guru of all gurus, to instruct me accurately about how I can attain auspiciousness in my life. I'm thinking if I leave the battlefield, I won't have to face the pain of seeing, but I realize that that's not going to work, because it's adharmic. I don't know what my dharma is. So he's asking this word shreya. And that's, don't forget, shreya kaida vachandakavadadanam. Right in the Shikshastika, second line, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is instructing us that by this Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting, which is the essence of Bhakti Yoga, this causes the white lotus of good fortune to expand in our own hearts and throughout the world. So that's, important instruction there. So he says, Nikshreya, the ultimate Shreya, Vishaya Kala Sarvataksya, because you've enjoyed all different varieties of Vishaya, which is sense gratification. It's not an accident that the word Vishaya, meaning sense gratification, and the word Visha, meaning poison, are very closely related. Just think about that a minute. All the sense gratification is poison. It's poisoning your life, your mind. So it says, Vishaya Kala Sarvataksya, you've already experienced all varieties of sense gratification and all these other births you've had, human and non-human. You remember that verse by Prahlad Maharaj? Told you we can memorize the one line. Punak punascharvita charvananam. Do you remember that one, Alex? What it means? Chewing the chewed again and again. Yes, again and again chewing the chewed. That means that all these different varieties of sense gratification is so interesting. We've done it already, and it's brought us again to a material body. So he's saying, okay, now strive for the ultimate good. How do I do that? Bhakti yoga. You'll break out of this bondage of the material life, and you'll regain your position of anandamaya obhyasat, of being inherently blissful in relation to Krishna, who is bliss personified. Rather than strive so hard for the little drops of sense gratification, which are your sources of misery and which are so frustrating, whether it's sex or drugs, rock and roll, whatever it may be, or mode of goodness, happiness, family life and everything, that also comes to an end and is destroyed. It's just like bubbles coming together and parting. So this instruction is, so he said, Durena yavaram karma, throw away at a great distance this avaram karma, abominable activity. And Prabhupada said, what's the abominable activity? Abominable activity is any activity not connected to Krishna consciousness. Right? Somewhere in here. Except for work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable. Because they just belong our life here. And this is very tricky because sometimes they look like very nice activities. You're helping others, you're doing, welfare work, whatever it is, But it's abominable because it may give you the idea that you're really doing good for others and for yourself. But ultimately it just prolongs the whole thing. Unless it's not related to this reestablishing or reawakening a relationship with Krishna, the all-good absolute, it's Shrama Evi Kevalam. This is the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So now, there's a verse where the devotee prays to be a miser. How is that? Something's wrong. How does he do that? Can anyone guess? You heard it? Yeah. So let's see if I can remember. Vichayani, vichinjani, punak, kripanasya, dhananiva, tvannamani bhavantanak. Compelled, constantly collect and contemplate his hoard. Compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. You see? So even misership can be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. Greed is greed. You know the verse about greed? Ramananda Roy's famous verse. He says, the first line of this verse is the source of the phrase Krishna consciousness. This is what Prabhupada translated as Krishna consciousness. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati. The mind absorbed in bhakti rasa, in loving relation to Krishna, serving Krishna. So Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikatopi labhyate. You should buy that if you can find it in the market. It's the most valuable thing. Tattva laulyam abhimulyam ekalam. The only price, mulyam, is your greed for it, your desire for it. That's our problem. We don't want Krishna. We don't care. We don't know how valuable it is. Our tongue is, our mind is ruined by the hepatitis of ignorance. So everything what's really sweet tastes bitter. So tattva laulyam abhimulyam ekalam janma koti sukhatayana labhyate. So the mind absorbed in bhakti rasa in relation to Krishna is the most valuable thing. You should purchase it if you can, and the only price is your greed for it. You can't achieve it by millions of births of pious activity. Koti Sukriti. It means material piety wasn't. You're not going to buy it. It has to be Krishna consciousness. So that's this verse. Buddhi Yoga. Again, we're back to Buddhi Yoga. Remember, Buddhi Yoga is the theme here. Your intelligence guiding the lower self and linking yourself to Krishna. Bhakti Yoga. Text 50. Again, Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yukto Jahatiya Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujasva Yoga Karma Sukaushalam. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Purport. Since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. Now, resultant action is another way that Prabhupada often calls reaction. So this result reactions. So what are these reactions? This is called Sukrita and Dushkrita. Sukrita is so-called good reactions to our work, which give us prosperity, good family birth, like that, beautiful body, wealth, And Dushkrita, or sinful activity, result of is just the opposite. Born in a poor family, deformed, you can fill in the blanks. You know what it is. So, how to become free? Now, even the Sukrita is not going to help you, because that keeps you bound here. You have to receive the result of your so-called good activity. So you become an A prisoner instead of a D prisoner. Instead of being locked in the cell 23 hours a day and allowed to take a shower 1 hour, you can go out into the yard and exercise, but you can't get out of the prison. You see, so it's not going to help us to improve our material situation. We have to get out of the prison, and we can only do that by Bhakti Yoga. So that's what Buddhi Yoga does. It frees one. Jahatiya can get rid of both the good and bad reactions, wholesale. Looks like we go around Tulsi. We worship Tulsi every morning. So the last song we sing, after that very advanced Bhakti Rasa song, it's like, we're back down to elementary. And that is, Yani Kani Papani, Brahmahatchati Kani Cha, Tani Tani. How's the song go? Huh? Pradakshina. So going out, step by step around Tulsi, you get free of all your karmic reactions, right? So, or you're chanting Hare Krishna. This is like preliminary benefit of Bhakti Yoga. Clearing out all of this karma that's keeping us bound up to this world. Can I see how valuable that is? So, by Buddhi Yoga, by Bhakti Yoga, one innovation devotional service, can get free of all the Sukrita and Dushkrita. Therefore, act in yoga. Krishna consciousness. This is the art of all work. So in other words, we have to work. You can't even keep your body and soul together by some kind of work. But how to work without getting entangled? In the next fourth chapter, Krishna will describe, one has to understand karma, vikarma, and akarma. You remember that? So karma in that context means work according to the Vedas, the Karmakanda section. In other words, virtuous work, but not Bhakti Yoga. Still fruitive, but at least it's within the realm of the Vedas, and you'll get another human birth and like that, is some vague thing. Vikarma is sinful activity, which will keep you bound, and sometimes you lose human form of life. And we see it all around us, and the people have no idea what they do. But we're looking for akarma. Akarma means to see inaction in action. You remember that phrase? Inaction, action, action, inaction. The main thing is the inaction in action. Like Dr. Glenn, I'm sure you were active today, doing so many services, right? So many things to do. But none of it was giving him any kind of reaction. None of it was binding him to this world. He's doing it all for Krishna, right? And that's the whole idea of these temples, to give a context in which you can actually work in Krishna consciousness keep body and soul together, there's plenty of prasadam, place to sleep, like that. But at the same time, engage in all kinds of activities that, number one, don't produce a bad reaction, and number two, cultivate your remembrance of Krishna. Because when you may be working in the temple, well, it's obviously Krishna's place. If you're sweeping up or you're doing something else, whatever you're doing here, you're doing it for the Lord. So you're advancing. You're getting free of your entanglement in this world, and you're becoming entangled in the network of loving relation with Krishna, which is what we want. So that's the art of all work, which pretty sure Prabhupada is teaching. How to live in this world and not only not become entangled, but to get rid of all of our previous entanglement. That's part of the blessings of Krishna consciousness. All right, text 51. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Here, you have to speak into this. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Kind of.
How
Yeah,
about
go
that?
ahead.
Okay. It sounds like a lot of that work is attention, that you need to, maybe half of the work that you're doing, if you're doing work, is also at the attention paid
Did you say attention?
attention, the attention paid to the consciousness.
Well, the idea is that when we're doing our assigned duties for the temple and Krishna consciousness, that they're helping us to remember Krishna. At the same time, we have our basic spiritual practices, which are not doing work, so to speak, but chanting Hare Krishna, which is direct remembrance. So the idea is that if you do that well, then that'll carry over into your daily duties, and you're remembering Krishna doing that. Because the whole thing is a yoga process. We want to be able to come to the point of remembering Krishna at every moment, because we don't know when that last moment is in this particular body, So yes, thank you for that. All right, text 51. Karmajam buddhi yuktahi palam tyuktva manishinaha janma bandha vinimukta padam gacchantanamayam. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. Well, that kind of says the whole thing. Purport: the liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam 10:14-58 says, this is, he's giving an explanation of the word anamiyam. Anamiyam means like Vaikuntha, without any miseries. The Bhagavatam says, Samashita ye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punya yasho marari bhavam buddhi vatsapadam param padam yadvipadam natesham. For one who has accepted the abode of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, the giver of mukti, the ocean of material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Param padam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger at every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness, and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself, and thus paves the way for a repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called karma yoga or buddhi yoga, or, in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So this verse is quite often quoted, and it's describing the lotus feet of Krishna as a boat. The word plava means boat. And why do we need a boat? To cross over an ocean. And what's the ocean? The ocean of danger, of the ocean of birth and death. Every morning, don't we think? Samsara, well, in this case it's compared to a forest fire. These are the two main analogies. A forest fire or an ocean. Both of them are places of extreme danger. Where if you're really in the middle of it, you can't get out on your own. If suddenly you're thrown in the middle of the ocean, it's hopeless, you're finished. Or if you're surrounded by blazing forest fire, there's only one thing to do. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. The ocean of birth and death, you can't cross over on your own. You need help. You need a proper boat. And so there's several verses in the Bhagavatam that describe the boat, different boats. So one is here, Krishna's lotus feet, secure boat. Samashita yeda padapala. Samashita means complete shelter. Padapalava plavam. The poetry of this, you have to be deaf not to hear it. Padapalava plavam. The boat of the lotus feet of the Lord. Mahatpadam, where it has two meanings. Where all the Mahatmas stay. They love to, get right down there in the lotus feet of Krishna and be secure. Or the Mahatattva. The whole universe is resting on the lotus feet. That's another meaning. Punya yasha. Punya yasha means that just by glorifying, we use this word yasha in both the songs we sing in the morning, the glories of the spiritual master. But just by glorifying the Lord, one attains piety. That's what punya yasha means. And Murari, Prabhupada says Mukunda, Murari, the Krishna. Bhavam Buddhir. So here's the ocean of birth and death. Bhava. Bhava means change, and in this context it means changing from birth, old age, and death. Vatsapadam. So the waters, its whole ocean shrinks down to a little puddle in the head. Not even a cow print, but a calf print. They're very small. You can just walk over it. You don't need the boat, after all. Why you're at Parampadam? Parampadam means the supreme abode, Vaikuntha. Padam, then play on words. Parampadam, padam padam. Padam, that means step by step. Yet vibhadam natesham. Not for them who are at the Vaikuntha is this place where there's danger at every step. You see that? So there's other boats in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is speaking and he compares the human body to a boat. Nirdeham, naradeham, adyam, full of all kinds of opulences or accoutrements. Nirdeham adyam sulabam sudurlabam plavam sukalpam gudakarna dharam. Mayanukulyena nabasviteritam puman bhavabdim, again bhavabdim, same word, bhavam buddhi. Natadet sa'atmaha. So he's enjoining us. Now you've got a human form of body, nirdeham adyam, it's perfectly suited to a boat to go across this ocean of birth and death. And then he, as a play on words, he uses two opposite words to describe it. Sulabam, sudurlabam. Sulabam means very easily attained. Sudurlabam is extremely difficult to attain. So how can it be both? Well, every living being eventually comes up to the human form. So in that sense it's sulabam. You just don't have to do anything. Everyone comes up. But sudurlabam, it's rare to have a human form. We discussed that already. There's only 7 billion of us, which is nothing. So sulabam sudurlabam, plavam sukalpam. It's a perfectly constructed boat to cross over the ocean of birth and death. But you have to have the captain. Who's the captain? Guru, Karnadaram, the bona fide guru, the teacher. But it's a sailboat. You need the favorable winds. I supplied them, Krishna speaking. My anukulyen and abhasviteditam, in the form of the Vedas, the Vedic literature, the Bhagavad Gita. So with all of these benefits, these opulences, puman bhavabdim natadet, that person who doesn't cross over this ocean is atmaha, virtually committing spiritual suicide. Having been given all of these gifts, right? This is and not just we're born there, and not just in Kali Yuga, but the Kali Yuga in which Lord Chaitanya appeared. Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya after Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. So it's not just we're fortunate to have a human form. We're fortunate to have this human form at this time in this Kali Yuga. And now let's not blow it. That's the idea. And then there's another one that a friend of mine reminded me, this beautiful verse in the 12th canto about another boat. Let's see if I can remember. Sangsara sindhu mati dusta namutti tesho nanyak pravo bhagavatak purushottamasya lila katarasani sevanam antarena pungso bhaved vivida dukkha davarditasya. So he said, Sangsara sindhum, the ocean of birth and death. Ati dustanam utti tirsha. The utti tirsha are those who are really eager to cross beyond it. That's the first thing. You have to know you're in the ocean, and then you have to be really eager to get out of it, which we should be once you find out what it is. Sangsara ati dustaram, which is extremely difficult to cross over. Ati dustaram utti tirsha. Nanyak Pavo, there's only this one boat. There's no other boat. Now he's describing, Nanyak Pavo Bhagavatak Purushottamasya Lila Katarasani Sevanam. The service or the cultivation of the taste for hearing about the Leela of Krishna. And the Leela of Krishna includes, of course, his Leela in Vrindavan, as well as the creation Leela, and all of this is also Leela. In other words, hearing the Bhagavatam. Lila Katarasani Sevanam Antadena. Who is it meant for? Pungso, the human beings is vivida dukkha davarditasya, who are burning in a vast variety of miseries in this material world. So why wouldn't we be eager to get over it, you see? But it's very interesting. This is at the end of the chapter describing the different kinds of annihilations that the universe goes through, the individual goes through, and the body dies, Kind of a depressing chapter. So at the end, it says, there's a boat, you can get out of it. Lila Katara. Srimad Bhagavatam, so wonderful. Okay, we've come to the end of our session tonight. We'll pick up with text 52 tomorrow, and I've just left a little time here for a couple of little nectar poems. This is what's going on in the spiritual world. Everybody is singing these poems all the time. Imagine being a bird there that can compose, or a bee that can compose these spontaneously, unending. So I thought of one. You may have heard it before. I have a limited number of these. Madhudesha, all M's. Listen to the M's. Madhudesha madhudi mayamadava munadim mattalika mugdha mama mananamoha damadama yamanaso maha mahamoham. Festival of M's. Rupa Goswami. O Master of Mathura, lovely Lord of Goddess Shri, who play such maddening melodies upon your murali. O Cupid's charmer, please redeem a life till now misspent, by joyfully destroying my extreme bewilderment. We can pray like that. Or we can pray for love. Pujanga de puchandakas buddha de kanda chudanko de nidankashadra ganchada brahmana baddha bringa brahme patanga duhitastati vanakuti rekedi priye padaspurutu me mohus tvayamukunda shuddharati. You know this one? It's not. Could there be a bhakta more precocious? I'm sitting down yesterday and he's playing the harmonium like he's a pro after 10 years. Hare Krishna. So what does he say here? Do you know the poem too? You wear the best of crests, a crown. Shuridhar. But I don't know if everyone heard that, so I'll say it again. You wear the best of crests, a crown of perfect peacock plumes. Your dancing glances stun the bees meandering midst the blooms. You relish love play in a cottage by Kalindi's shore. O Krishna, may pure love for you be mine forevermore. This is a nice prayer. You can all chant it. Okay, now we'll adjourn and we'll have a kirtan in a few minutes. We're going to try to keep the drum. I'll play the drum really soft because we don't want to wake up Vijay. Hare Krishna. We want to